He's Michael. I'm Collin. In case you haven't figured that out already, we're like 8 episodes in. But yeah, starting our first franchise Friday. Basically, we're just gonna every week on Fridays just start diving into a specific franchise, like Call of Duty, Gears of War, just to name a few that we'll be diving into. And today we decided to go into Gears of War. Surprisingly, Call of Duty would have been an easy one to start with.
Gears
but
of War controller.
Oh, look at that.
Cool. Yeah. Totally forgot that's what was on there.
But yeah, I guess just to start off things, I don't know if you want to just kind of dive into, I guess, the gist of what it is and kind of I think you were the one who actually introduced me to Gears of War, so I'll kind of let you take the floor and kind of get things started here.
All right, sounds good. Well, so I jumped into the Gears of War world actually starting with Gears of War 2, but then I ended up picking up Gears of War. So essentially what Gears of War is, the foundation of it is humanity is fighting against an entity called the Locusts. In the beginning, you don't really know too much about the Locusts, that they can surface up to the ground, that seems like that's where they come from. And you're part of a military unit, COGS, and it's your job to deal with this locust situation. And you follow main character Marcus Phoenix and his team as the storyline progresses. And they're like these top-notch COG operatives, essentially. It's pretty good story overall. It's the character design gets a funny rap for this is the way they're designed. Their legs are bulky and their arms, like, they're just massive humanoids. But that's another. It's a very beautiful game visually. At least when I first started playing, to me it was because I told you that story in our earlier podcast about how I got the Xbox 360 Gears of War edition for Christmas, and that was my first wow, this game looks super realistic moment compared to my old systems that I played on. So yeah, Gears of War was very good-looking game for its time. I don't know. I haven't played some of the newer ones. I've heard they hold up pretty well.
Yeah, they kind of as time goes on, I feel like a lot of times these franchises will kind of veer off of the main path. And I mean, Gears 5 didn't necessarily do that per se, although I would definitely say out of the 6 Gears of Wars that there are, that it kind of, well, aside from Judgment, because Judgment was basically into Barrett and his side of the story and his squad before he kind of jumped into Marcus's squad. But I don't know. I mean, it was overall a good game. It was kind of an open world concept, is what it ended up being. You had a set mission that you needed to follow and get from point A to point B. But along the way, there were side missions you could stop at and take care of, whether it was someone like, oh, our water got shut off, so you have to fight through some locusts or whatever to go turn this valve to help get the water back to this small village and stuff like that. So it was an interesting addition to the game, but at the same time, it kind of got away from the main Gears of War feel.
Oh yeah, and so Gears of War for me was one of those games that just kind of on track with everything. So you know how Fortnite skins got to be very popular, and having a certain skin or character was the thing you wanted. That's what Gears of War was like for me when I was younger too. Just having these certain characters, there was just certain characters I wanted to get so bad, and you had to do certain things to unlock them, and that's what I thought was really cool too. But yeah, and then I just loved collecting all these different character skins. And it was one of those first flashier games of its time that had this stuff that you could get. You had different weapon skins you could get. So I thought that was really cool about it too.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that, it was difficult to really get some of them. It required hours and hours of grinding, and some of them were horde related, so you had to survive so many hordes. You had to survive so many waves of horde playing as a certain play type, whether it was a sniper or support or assault. I think there's another one. I can't remember them all exactly, but yeah. I'll
Well,
kind of
dude,
look
honestly,
into.
just
Yeah.
bringing up Horde in general. Horde is such a fun game mode, and that was just kind of like there's other games that have done modes like that, but there was just something about Horde that just made it so iconic. Like just playing with your friends and trying to survive as long as you can, and it was just really fun.
Hmm.
Uh, that was another cool thing that the Gears of War franchise had, and then their unique, ultra-violent mechanics of, like, say, the Lancer and the chainsaw blade. Uh, they also introduced in the pike, like the old school Lancer, that had like a bayonet on it, and you just charged and like stab people. And like their execution mechanics were pretty dope. And we know what the game kind of devolved into is either auto lock snipers or wall bouncing Nasher users, and that's essentially what it was. And then grenades getting chucked every direction. But the playing multiplayer for the campaign was really fun too, because they added in damage modifiers and stuff like that, and it's just nothing cooler than just taking on like a giant locust monster with your friends. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I feel like before even Call of Duty, Gears of War was probably the go-to game to play with your friends and have that, as you had mentioned, that campaign get together where um, the co-op the co-op and the single player were essentially the same, but you they were enjoyed very differently because rather than playing single player, you have these bots that help you. And a lot of times, those bots can be overpowered, and it kind of takes away from the game because they're off doing their own thing and taking care of creatures that you don't see. But when you go into that co-op, everybody's dependent on each other to get that task done, whether it's fighting one large boss or fighting a mob of locusts. And I feel like as much as Call of Duty gets the appreciation as being one of the most renowned franchises, I think Gears of War definitely had a presence before Call of Duty that a lot of people often forget about.
well, yeah, and that's the thing that Gears of War seemed like it had a lot more longevity for it than what happened. Because I thought the game would have been around. I thought it'd be it's like rival to games like Halo. I thought that's how big it seemed, and it just kind of just died out right away. But it's a shame because it's really. I mean, there's still a lot of people I'm sure that play Gears of War. Um, I haven't in recent. I don't think the last time. I think the last time I played Gears of War, honestly, it was like a year ago, if not more. But I'm sure there's still people that do play it, but it just doesn't have the longevity. Like there's still people who go back in these original Halo servers and still play Halo from years ago just because that's what they prefer. That's they literally just keep re-releasing the same game over and over in certain like obviously it's different, but the multiplayer usually ends up being the same thing. And
Hmm.
then people just keep buying them and buying them. So, but Gears of War tried to do that same formula and it didn't work out.
And kind of going into the multiplayer of Gears, I feel like that's where they've kind of set themselves apart as well. Is as you had mentioned, the Halo, even Call of Duty, year after year, the multiplayer is the same. The only thing that changes is the weapon types, whether they're futuristic, whether they're more with the times, whether they're from like Black Ops One was more of the Vietnam era and the Cuban Missile Crisis and stuff, so it was more adapt to those times. But Gears has essentially stuck with the same weapons all the way through. They've added a couple in here and there. As far as like the retro lancer, I think that got introduced in what Gears 3 or 4. I can't remember which one exactly, but it wasn't around.
I think it might have been
Or,
3.
okay,
I think it might have been 3. That yeah, I think it was 3 for the Retro Lancer.
yeah, but I mean, essentially your main weapons are your lancer, your Nasher shotgun, snub nose pistol or bolt hawk, depending on your preference, and then a sniper. Aside from that, you had like obviously I could go on a list of you got your buzz saw, your boom shot. Um, I can't remember what the crossbow. What was the crossbow called?
Oh snap, dude! I can't even remember. We'll just call it. We'll just call it a crossbow.
Yeah, but it was essentially they look like a bow and arrow, but you could shoot it like a crossbow. Is essentially what it was. Um, but yeah, basically what I was getting at is as much as like Call of Duty and Halo have really stuck to a T what they've done, Gears has implemented new game modes. Um, they're always changing up I guess the concept of how they do multiplayer in and of itself with different server types, how many people are in them. There's different tournaments, stuff like that. It really, if you want to dumb it down, it could be as simple as team deathmatch for people. But there's different other game modes like King of the Hill, Guardian, all these other game modes in Gears of War multiplayer that really they're like Call of Duty is just kind of getting on the scene with it, like with their Hardpoint, for example. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Gears kind of, again, doesn't get the appreciation that it deserves for getting the ball rolling and kind of setting the foundation for these other franchises to kind of build off of. And I mean, obviously, they're a franchise in and of themselves. It's not like all these different franchises piggyback off of each other and they're like, oh, we're going to use your thing if that's cool. Essentially, they do because I mean, when you think about it, you can't really get off of one main idea for a first-person shooter. They're all going to be the same no matter what. But I don't know. Just kind of like I said, Gears of War kind of had that variety that other games weren't able to offer at the time. And I'm sure even there's game modes that they still offer that other games haven't really tapped into yet.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I don't know. For me, because I always get that nostalgic feeling when I think about playing Gears of War because that was that was one of the main games I came up on, and so I think it's always going to have that feeling towards it. So I'm always going to kind of have a bias to lean towards it. I mean, I could know I knew there was things obviously wrong with the game that a lot of people didn't like enjoy about it. I thought the storyline though was pretty solid. I actually enjoyed the story because it jumped into some pretty intense issues and characters were dying. Like main characters would die left and right. You didn't expect to die, and so it just was like kind of like, oh, who's gonna die, and then stuff like that. And then, for example, with Dom, I don't know if you remember that, but when he sacrifices himself,
I was just watching that video. If it was from 3, yeah,
it's one of the most dramatic scenes I've seen, like in those kind of video games. You know, like honestly, ever because in those kind of games, they don't really do that to one of your main characters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely shocking. So
yeah, I remember, yeah, when I watched that video and even kind of just like reminiscing about when I first played through it and watched it for the first time. I remember like being heartbroken about it because like I don't remember what age I would have been. I would probably been late middle school, early high school. I can't remember what year 3 came out exactly, but yeah, that was a big a bit emotional point of the game, and even in 2, basically. I mean, for those of you who haven't played Gears yet, for one, you're behind the times. These games have been out for a long time. So I guess pause the episode and come back to it at a later time if you haven't played them through. But so there's going to be some spoilers along the way. But essentially, 2, you're playing, you're trying to find Dom's wife, Maria. And it comes to the end, and it's a very emotional point because you end up being too late. She ends up dying. And then that kind of turns into a dark point for Dom between 2 and 3, how he's just kind of isolating himself and kind of stepped away from the team. He's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And he like got kind of scraggly, grew out a beard and all that kind of stuff. And essentially that leads to his death scene in 3 is kind of sacrificing himself, A, for the team, and B, I think he like was like speaking out to Maria like, oh, you didn't expect me to go out this way or whatever. So yeah, pretty much every Gears of War that I could ever think of had either a main character die or just a very emotional point, which a lot of times the 2 kind of tied together. But
like that, I think the whole Carbine Brothers concept was really funny though. Their deaths kind of
one of them has to die every
yeah,
game.
it's like and so then you get this jacked one. Who was it? C. Carmine? I think it was Clayton Carmine.
Clayton,
he was he was the jacked one who just. I don't think he ever died, did he? He was because he's just a powerhouse. Like,
yeah, I want to say 4. Yeah, I want to say 4. They finally stopped the Carbines dying because 1, 2, 3, one of them died every time, and then 4.
So it went Anthony, Benjamin. So no, I think only I think 1 and 2 is 3 is when they stopped because Anthony was the first one. He is the one who died. He actually kind of lived a little bit longer, I think, than Benjamin did. But Benjamin just got shot in the head, didn't he? Like he got shot by a sniper.
Yeah, I think
it was that Anthony.
sniper.
What?
I think
No, was it Anthony or Benjamin? No, Anthony's the one who took the sniper around.
I
Yeah,
think you're
so he's
right.
the one who died quick. Yeah, I think because Benjamin like survived something that's similar to that, and then he ends up dying because of the acid and the I think that's what happened.
Hmm.
But no, I don't think Clayton ever died. He has a tattoo on his arm of Benjamin and Anthony, and I think it's funny because I think they have their helmets on the tattoo. Like, I have to look it up though. Yeah, I'm gonna look that picture up. But yeah, no, I love the Carmen brother concept.
And that's kind of an interesting point with the Carmines too. Is you never see their faces. You see every other like Marcus never wears a helmet. Dom, Barrett, Cole, they all they all go about the campaign and just their characters in general without wearing a helmet. And Carmine is one that's always worn a helmet, so you don't even know what they look like because every single one of them always has that same like generic cog helmet on. So it's kind of interesting how, like, I guess in that sense, the game kind of protects their identity by never showing who they truly are.
Yeah, his tattoo is literally it's Anthony and Benjamin's helmets with like angel wings behind it and like a sword going through a ribbon that says rest in peace and that rest in peace and has Anthony and Benjamin under the respective helmets. It's a I think it's funny that he has a tattoo of his brothers. You know, you think it would be their faces like
Hmm.
in remembrance, but it's their helmets because that's them poking fun at it. I love that
Yeah,
that you can never see their identity. That's so I see those. It's those fun little callbacks to see like that, and that just cracks me up. Uh, oh man, I still think it's funny that the dude just got sniped, which is it's like it's a death. It shouldn't be funny, but they set it up to be kind of comedic.
yeah.
And I like that they did as much as they could to give characters that look like just giant meatheads some depth to them, and that was pretty cool. Uh, and I like how there's this looming pretext situation story that happened before the locust. They already just went through a war. They were at war with not locusts but people, and now they are kind of in this like post-war state, and now they get thrust right into another altercation right away. So I think that's a really cool concept that not a lot of people know that about the lore. Like they mention it in passing, but they don't like you can't really find much information on it unless you go look for it,
Hmm.
in those games to learn that history. And so I think that's just really dope.
Yeah, it's one of those games where there aren't really any cut scenes where they kind of lay out the story for you, and this is where you are, and this is the person you're talking to, this is their backstory. Like they give hints here and there, and like you said, it's stuff you have to pick up on. Otherwise, there's intel that you pick up in the game, and if you pick that up and read through it, I think you have to go in like to the main menu and look through your intel, and it's like documents and books and like dog tags and stuff like that that you pick up, and it's through those items within the game that you have to kind of piece the story together. Otherwise, essentially, it is a game where, yeah, there's some cutscenes of like major characters dying, but aside from that, the cutscenes are like, all right, we just killed this big freaking monster. Now let's go on to the next one. It's like, it's just like it's one battle scene to the next. If you want the game to be that way, which is kind of, I guess, what's nice about the versatility of the game is if you want to go into depth and learn the story inside out, you can do that. But if you want to just kind of, I guess, speed run through it and just mow stuff down with lancers and shotguns, you can do that too. But um, I'm trying to recall from the newest one, which is kind of. Have you played the newest one at all?
Not really, actually. No, I haven't. So I might have to pick that up. I think it's on Game Pass, isn't it?
It might be. It might be. I
I'll
mean,
go
I have
check.
it. I have a physical copy of it myself, but so I guess I won't talk about it too much then if you haven't played it because I don't want to.
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I don't mind spoilers.
okay. So essentially, it's the same team, kind of an open world concept. You're always going from point A to point B, and essentially, you're trying to fight Queen Mira, who you find out if you're familiar with the character Kate. She first
Yeah.
appears in 4. Essentially, she finds out that Queen Mira is her mom or her grandma. Her mom or her grandma?
I think it's her
Can't remember.
grandmother.
Grandmother.
I've read the lore. I read the summary of the game, so I know like what happens with Marcus, and I know because it follows his son, doesn't it, AJ, or something along the lines of
JD.
that. JD. Okay, that's it. JD.
Yep.
Yeah, so it follows JD, and then yeah, what isn't his one of his friends like the kid of Dom or something like that, or does he just look like he's like the kid of
He
Dom?
he just looks like it. Otherwise, there's Dell too. Um,
Okay.
but essentially, when it comes down to the end, is like there's a boss fight with Queen Mira, and then you have another really emotional point of the game that leaves you with a tough decision. Is Queen Mira is holding Dell and JD like with her whatever around their throats, and you have to decide which one you want to save. So literally, you either kill JD or you kill Dell. So it's kind of interesting if how they're going to play into the next Gears of War with the campaign, because obviously I don't know what the statistics are, and maybe by this point they have it, but like who do they go with? Who do they continue the story with? You know what I mean? Do they find out, 62% of people chose JD to die through their playthroughs, so that's who we're going with? You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
but if you're someone who picked L to die, well then the continue on the story kind of ruins your story with it because that's not the way you chose it to end. So unless they completely just decided, yeah, this is our last Gears, boom, we're done. Which I don't. There wasn't any talk of that when like before five got released. Is enjoy this as it's our last one. I'm sure they're currently working on another one, and usually Bethesda's pretty quiet um, about those games that they make. And it's usually not until within that year, even like 6 months out, that you find out, oh yeah, we're releasing this game this year. So it'd be kind of interesting to see how that plays out, given that you had a choice at the end of the game who to let die and who you wanted to save, and see how they tie that into the next campaign.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then who actually makes Gears again? Is it?
Coalition. I don't know what did I say. Bethesda?
Yeah, I think he said Bethesda, and I was like, wait a second.
No, it's
So
Coalition. I think. Let me take a look.
BioWare.
Oh, Epic Games.
I always
So same.
blank on this. Epic Games. Oh yeah,
Micro,
that's the people who made Fortnite.
yeah, the
Yeah.
same people who make Fortnite. Microsoft has a big part in it as well. And then Coalition are like the three main developers for the game.
Awesome. Well, and then yeah, like you were saying though, like it would be weird to see them try to continue that story. Would go about making another one. One thing I would like to see is like a prequel. Uh, so like showing the Pendulum Wars, like going into full detail about that, I think that'd be pretty dope. And like having that as a game, so that doesn't have to be any Locust storyline. It could just be a completely original storyline that they've already kind of like set up through the lore of Gears of War.
Yeah, like you had mentioned, because there's a war that they were fighting basically with themselves, with other people before the Locust came into the equation. Like you had mentioned, it'd be kind of cool for them to dive into what was that war that happened beforehand. And another interesting fact that I want to bring up right off the bat, and I had never known, which is kind of in like a fact that I should have realized before, is that Gears of War doesn't take place on Earth. It takes place on a planet called Sarah.
Yep, Sarah. And that's one thing I actually wondered about too. Like, was I wonder if there's a story on if they were originally on Earth, if it's in their lore. I know nothing about the history of Sarah, and I would love to know more about the history of that planet and how they exist there, and just what, like, how their history is established. Essentially, it'd be awesome to learn.
Yeah, but yeah, and that's the thing too, is when I read that fact, it's like it's a common thing that's missed, that really a lot of people who are huge fans of the games don't realize, because even though they're on a foreign planet, They still breathe the air like normal. They're not like in suits where like there's no oxygen. There's trees, there's plants, there's other animals that look like animals that would live on Earth. So it's a very common misconception that this game takes place on Earth, but it actually doesn't. So, like you had said, would be something to look into as far as if Earth still exists, or if like maybe that's where the war started. Because as we had talked about it, the before the war with the locusts, it was a war between basically each other. I wonder if that war took place on Earth, and it got destroyed to the point they had to leave it, and they went to Sarah, and that's where they now reside.
Oh no. Well, this says emergency occurred a mere 6 weeks after the Pendulum Wars ended. So I'm assuming this war started on Sarah, and this is a war that existed on Sarah already. But damn, imagine just ending a war and then 6 weeks later, fucking locust monsters burst out of the ground. I'd be pissed.
I'd give up.
No wonder why Marcus always just has such an angry look on his face.
Yeah, he's always pissed off at everything. Eat shit and die.
Man, let's see. What other interesting facts are there? The locusts are descendants of humans. Unless you've bothered to read some of the Gears of War novels, you probably didn't know that locusts were actually humans at one point. How did they turn into murderous monsters? Simple. The emulsion. See, when the emulsion gold rush hit, countless number of folks turned into extraction for work. Unfortunately, overexposure to this stuff resulted in a sickness called lambency that began transforming humans into monsters. Oh, so locusts were humans.
Mm-hmm.
Ah.
Yeah, that's kind of ties into that fact with how essentially even though locusts are like fighting like regular people basically created the locusts. So they, as you had mentioned, they found emulsion and they ended up trying to extract it, and they're using it as an energy source. So basically the greed of humankind came back to bite them in the ass because they found this new thing under the ground. They're like, oh, let's convert this into energy, not realizing that it was essentially radioactive and turning humans into monsters. So even though it's like, oh, it's these mindless monsters, you're essentially fighting people just like you.
So I just thought of a kind of cool concept. For future franchise Fridays. Why can I not speak right now? So for future franchise Fridays, I thought of this. What if we played games, like every game in the series, and leading up to doing the franchise Friday? Or we do it after. So like we do one of these episodes, and then we go play the games, and we do another episode after we played the games.
Yeah,
Would that be something you'd be interested in?
I think diving into it beforehand would probably make more sense. That way we can kind of get all of these feelings fresh out of our minds, and kind of get our reactions of it. And if we could even I could put together compilations of our gameplay even, and kind of tie it into the episode in some way. That way, folks who have never heard of Gears of War or haven't played it, we're kind of giving them a sneak preview of what it's about. And even though a lot of what we're talking about is spoilers, it's still just kind of an overall, like we're essentially Wikipedia, but with visuals and, well, Wikipedia is opinion based too, because anybody can post on there, but yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, yeah, I think that'd be a cool idea to mess around with. Maybe even just touch roots with any of the franchises. We'll just do like a game rundown on a weekend or something, where we just go through these games like super fast, as like quick as we can, but while trying to enjoy what we're doing. Just to find just scour and find some of the better moments that meant something to us.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I think it'd be especially fun if we do a Fallout franchise Friday. Because we'd be able to find the moments like Gary and just stupid stuff like that. But yeah, no, I really hope that there's a future for Gears of War, but I kind of feel like they're kind of dead in the water right now. I don't. I haven't. I don't know. I haven't looked up if there's a future game coming at all. Have you read anything if there are any more
No,
the new series that
but
Xbox is?
before we did this episode, I just typed in like Gears of War 6 just to like see if any like information would come up, and there's there's like sources that are like, oh yeah, we speculate that they're in the process of making one, although they haven't confirmed it. So it's like you never know.
Yeah.
It could be years
Well,
down the road, just because like Call of Duty comes out with a new game every year. Gears of War didn't come out with one every year; it was every couple of years. So, um, and Gears 5 just came out either last year or the year before. So I'd imagine by this time next year, if we haven't heard of one, either they're working on something really big or they're done if they haven't announced anything by then.
I just wonder how big their fan base currently still is, because I know like it just seemed like a lot of the people I knew stopped playing Gears. I don't really know anyone who still actively plays Gears of War.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, essentially, yourself, me, and then Lake, he played it. Champagne kind of played it. Aside from that, nobody else that I know had ever played it. Um, which is not a very popular game to begin with, which is weird to say. It is a popular game because people are familiar with it, but it's not popular in the sense that um, people can relate to it or be able to tap into those moments that they remember playing the game. They're just like, yeah, you shoot these big monsters and like, which again, that that's what you can take out of the game if you choose to, and that's where I feel like a lot of the fan base is the people who just played through it, didn't really look into the lore of it or the story behind it. And then when you ask them about it, they're like, "Yeah, I played it before. I don't remember anything about it." But um, yeah,
Also, Gears of War had some pretty badass villains too. Like I just love like what was his name? Scourge. And then there's also I think Romulus or what were all their names? I'm
Scourge. Yeah. Um,
who was the first one's name? I always forget. He has like the bats that are always following him.
I don't remember. I've never
Uh,
played Gears One. I started at Gears Two
oh
myself, and
really?
yeah, I haven't played Gears One, which is crazy too. Because I recently, a couple months back, I jumped back into Gears Two just for shits and gigs to just kind of play it.
Oh, Rom. Yeah, that's his name. Rom
Okay,
is the storm.
I forgot about him. But yeah, I dived back into Gears 2, and it's crazy how even though that game is 11, 12 years old, it like, and you could tell it is, but at the same time, if that game was released today, you'd be like, oh, this is a well put together game. It looks really good. So it's kind of crazy how like 12 years later, I can look at this game and it doesn't look like a dinosaur. So back then, it really was like state of the art graphics and gaming for that time.
Oh yeah.
I guess did you have any other facts to kind of go through? I know these episodes aren't really made to be super long. Just kind of diving
No,
into
I
the
don't really
game
have too
and
much
talking
more to
about
touch.
facts.
I
And
don't have too much really more to touch on in base of random facts or anything like that. You have any more?
no, not really. I mean, some of the ones I had thought about bringing up, you had kind of touched on, so that worked out. So I didn't have to bring them up myself. And um, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of one of those games that are really up in the air. It's kind of hard to sit and talk about it for a long time because there isn't a defined future for where the game is going. Whereas you talk about Call of Duty or Halo, there's new Halo coming out this year. Well, next year now because they pushed it back, and there's a new Call of Duty coming out every year. So there's always something to talk about. But Gears is just one of those topics that obviously need to be brought up because it was a big part of both of our gaming lives growing up and kind of shaped us into just figuring out what genres of games we like to play. But um, like I said, it's a hard game to just sit and talk about for a really long time.
Oh yeah, definitely. And some of these episodes will be a lot longer. For example, once we jump into things like Elder Scrolls or even the Fallout universe, there's so much lore to flush out there. Whereas Gears of War, its lore is it's plentiful, but it's also not one of the few lores that I've dived into too deeply
Hmm.
in my time of gaming. But I just know it has this really fascinating lore, and it's actually one I will look into more and probably bring up in several podcasts later. You'll probably hear me talking more about Gears of War if I just end up getting really into it. But yeah, no, I feel like we covered everything pretty well when it comes to what we were trying to get across with Franchise Friday. Uh, and yeah, no, I don't really have too many more points to talk about.
Yeah, me either. So, I mean, we'll kind of wrap things up with at that then, and next week I'm not sure which one we'll dive into. Maybe it'll be I don't know. I kind of want to dive into either Fallout or Elder Scrolls. We've been talking about those a lot lately, and I haven't. I keep every time I launch my Xbox, I see Skyrim on there, and I'm like, ugh. I know. I know if I click on it, it's just that there goes my next 6 months because I'm just going to invest all this time into this character. So,
I literally downloaded it and started playing, and then deleted it again because I knew I was going to get upset. Like literally obsessed with it. That game is like kryptonite for me. It just makes me so weak. I love it though. But yeah, no. So I think that's a good place to wrap things up. For anyone tuning in, if you enjoyed our friends joining us for the Black Ops episode, just let us know, and we can plan to implement more people joining us in the episodes, and we'll bring people in today. Like, say we're talking about Elder Scrolls or Fallout, we'll bring in one of our nerdy friends who knows a lot more about it than us. Because there are a few that probably do know just a bit more. But
yeah.
yeah, other than that, yeah, signing off.
All right. See you, man.
See you.